As a lot of you might know, one of the main roadmap items on Ethereum has been its scaling. Adopting more users, getting its speed at cheaper prices, pay for less gas fees. That has been always on top of mind for Ethereum developers and Ethereum community. That's where we got the rollups. Today, we have some of the best in the industry from some of the major teams, including Arbitrum and the Ethereum Foundation itself, along with Hyve. We're going to discuss these rollups, the challenges that we faced, what each of these teams are doing to address these challenges, and hopefully we get a better understanding of how ultimately Ethereum is going to scale and get to a better landscape. So I'm going to start with actually a round of introductions. Amir, I'm the founder and CEO of Puffer. We're building composable infrastructure and yield solutions on Ethereum. Please go ahead, Matt. You can introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Matt. I work at Offchain Labs, one of the initial developers of Arbitrum. I just asked you to bear with me. I took a red-eye flight last night, landed at 7, and I have not slept. So excited to talk with you guys.
Hi all, I'm Binji. I work at the Ethereum Foundation, helping around a range of initiatives, mainly around developer acceleration and growth.
Hi everyone, I'm Douwe. I'm the founder of Hyve. We build high-throughput data solutions for data-intensive applications and protocols, such as data availability for rollups. But we also do data solutions for deep-in networks, AI, RWAs, and all of the data-intensive applications and protocols.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. Now, I want to do something more ad hoc here. If you want to explain what a rollup is to our audience in less than 30 seconds, what would it be? I'll start with you, Matt.
Sure. So for those familiar with Ethereum, which is a distributed ledger, a world computer, if you will, Ethereum's main focus is coming to consensus and providing a secure, a trustless, and verifiable record of trade and data exchange. When you have a system that needs to maintain this level of security, it can only go so fast because it takes time for computers and people to agree. A rollup allows this system to move more quickly and process more transactions by taking the execution to a separate environment, processing all of those transactions on a separate blockchain known as a rollup, and then posting that information back down to the main layer, which then comes to consensus on the state of the rollup. So it's really a separate lane for bandwidth that allows the overall system to be more efficient.
Awesome.
It's a tough act to follow. It's essentially, I think, like, we're all in the business of decentralized compute. Rollups scale decentralized compute to help end users utilize and get access to decentralized compute without having a lot of the trade-offs like cost and speed, etc. It's a really foundational way for us to reach real people. And that's what we're here for at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is tough to expand on. It's pretty complete. But yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is rollups are kind of a way of horizontally scaling the Ethereum execution environment. So you take the same execution environment and you take it into different sequencers that you add to the same state of Ethereum, make it all provable, and but less decentralization, more trade-offs in, and you get more speed. Out of that.
Great. Yeah, now that everybody in the audience who didn't know what a rollup is knows what a rollup is, we all know that there are transactions that are going to be processed on a parallel execution environment. It's going to be sequenced through a sequencer. But to also now point out to the topic of our talk, there is now talks about trust. Trust, which is directly connected to decentralization. And that's one of the major concepts that are of a concern in crypto world, like how decentralized are your validator sets, how decentralized your chain is, how can I trust my assets are actually safe on your chain? So what does decentralization mean in the context of Ethereum rollups in your eyes? How can we really ensure trust, minimize scaling? And what are some of the efforts that are done, for example, by the EF, like including backing L2 beta or other protocols to actually track this? You can go first, Matt.
Sure.
Yeah.
So just to restate the question is like, what is the importance or what are the modalities of trust within the kind of...
Yeah, so like what does decentralization or minimizing trust on a rollup mean to you as a team?
Okay. So I'll try to be succinct here, but it's a little bit nuanced. I mean, if you look at L2B's website, it's actually like a myriad of ways to understand how things are secure or not secure. ultimately, the way that I think about this is trust is a trade-off that you make when you are trying to accomplish a task, right? So if you look at the traditional financial markets, we place a lot of trust in a specific set of entities to allow trade to happen at a global scale. As technology has developed, we've realized we can actually get that same level of performance, but also allow many more actors to come to agreement on what's happened. So that's where we saw Ethereum take place and why we see a lot more trade actually moving on the blockchains, because we're getting to a place where it's fundamentally actually more efficient for trade to happen on this distributed network than it is to take place in a centralized database. At the same time, not every component of the blockchain system needs to be fully trustless today. And the reason is as I mentioned, it's a trade-off. So if you look at rollups today, we on Arbitrum, using what we call BOLD, which is a bonded liquidity challenge mechanism, have already implemented what we feel is a very trust minimized architecture for coming to agreement on the state of a rollup. So for example, in Arbitrum 1 today on mainnet, you only need one honest party to defend the state of a chain, and anybody can play that role. It's a fully permissionless environment. If you look at something else, and this is what you're getting at, and then I'll shut up. On the other side of the stack, so again, coming to agreement on the finality of the chain, that can be defended by anyone. But coming to consensus on the ordering of the chain, when transactions are being processed much more quickly than they are coming to finality at the end state, that is much more performant for end users to have be done by a single party. Now, in the end state, I'm not exactly sure where things will end up, depending on what users want. But I think a lot of parties will want multiple people to come to agreement on ordering, and that's where we have work to be done.
Great. Now, as Ethereum Foundation, what is the view on this?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. I'm actually going to use a prop for this. So like, okay, why are we here, right? Trust. What is trust generally? One fundamental truth is, and something that I'm trying to work on is, we've had hardware, we've had software. As more value and digital, like real life goes online, we need trustware, right? So let's say this is the real world today, right? We're in this glass, like this is our lives. I can look at it, I can look through it, etc. Right? I know like the oxygen I breathe is oxygen. The handshake I have is like someone in front of me. Like I can look into someone's eyes, know they're a real person. I can trust, right? There's implicit trust in meat space, if you will. This is the internet. This is the digital world. It's more opaque. It's inside this little plastic tube thing. I might not know exactly what's inside it unless I open it, and then I'm trapped inside. This is the difference. As we go from here to here as a species, right? As more of our value goes online, because hardware and software has accelerated, we're going to need trustware, right? So Ethereum, in a sense, you can think of it as trustware, right? It's the next evolution. If you read the famous Mark Andreessen post, I think almost a couple decades ago, maybe even, it was like software will eat the world. The next stage is trustware will eat the world, because without trustware, we cannot actually go and live our lives entirely online, which is what the world is heading towards, right? You have AI bots everywhere. You're not going to know who's human, what's real, what's fake. You have your money online. All of this stuff needs an implicit basis of trust. As I said earlier, like rollups scale trust, right? Ethereum is the home of trust. Rollups scale that trust and extend it to other properties. So real people at the end can actually utilize that trust for a given thing, whether that's like payments, trading, at the beginning, but over time, it could be social media, it could be literally everything you do on the internet. So I think one thing to think about is like, how do we scale trust in a meaningful manner? How do we ensure that even as that trust scales from L2s, they remain as close to like the pure trustware properties of Ethereum in itself? And you can think of the trustware properties of Ethereum in itself being defended by the security budget, etc., right? Like that's Ethereum security, provides the trust that then allows for applications to be built such that we can live in an internet that has trust, is based off of this idea of trustware. Again, we had hardware, we had software, more values going online, more of our lives are going online, we need to trust it, right? Like how do we get the internet to be open like this, and I can know when I do something, it's like real, when I talk to someone, they're a real human. There's all these different reasons for this. So that's part of one of the ways that I personally, like we think about it in some capacity. Now I think obviously to get there, because that sounds really nice, right? There's so much there. It's an incremental process. You can't just go from here to here immediately. There's incremental stages of decentralization that we go through, which is what L2Beat has done a fantastic job of, like stage 0, stage 1, stage 2, and beyond. And it's a work in progress, and all the rollup teams have been absolutely accelerating. Honestly, it's been incredible to see. If you look at like the sheer variety of things happening on chain now, it's surreal. And this is coupled with the idea that crypto can actually meet the world today. and rollups are a great way for them to do so.
So you're pretty much aligned with Matt as well that, hey, it's going to be a progression of actually like getting to fully like similar trust levels that we have with the L1 itself. It's going to be a roadmap, and eventually we're going to be able to achieve that. How about yourself? What do you think from Hyve perspective or a general perspective on data and handling that?
Yeah, I think what you guys said was like indeed very, very on point. I think the thing that I would add to that is that what currently is very much the focus of rollups, which is good, is the decentralization of state, the decentralization of trust when it comes to proving it, and all of these state transitions, right? And I think right now what L2Beat has done with stage 0, stage 1, and stage 2 is a fantastic way to categorize all of that, divide between training wheels, divide between like true decentralization where really the code is law. And I think right now it would be also good to focus more or put effort into also exploring the data side of things. So we have obviously blobs on Ethereum, they are scaling up, that's fantastic. There's also a lot of alt-DAs that rollups are already using. And currently on L2Beat, we already have a good categorization of all the alt-DAs. But I think the research when it comes to categorizing what trust means when it comes to the data that is underpinning all of this state on rollups, I think there's still a lot to be done there that would categorize that trust better and create better products when it comes to all of these rollups scaling up and storing these different pieces of data in Ethereum or in other solutions as well.
Great. Yeah. So now that we're still on the topic of trust, I want to also ask you guys about like the two leading architectures, really. Maybe it's the same architecture that is being proposed by researchers, including ZK rollups and also native rollups that are establishing some format of a trust in their own way, or even like they're aligned. What are your thoughts about these efforts of doing more verifiable actions on rollups?
Sure, I can start. Can I get a really quick show of hands for who in the audience is technical? Awesome. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I knew that. Okay. So they're very related from my perspective. Native rollups are a proposal to allow the layer 1 network to be more responsible for execution validation that happens on layer 2s in real time. And zero knowledge proving is a type of technology that allows proving to happen more quickly than the current paradigm we see in optimistic rollups, where there is a period of time for arbitration to take place. So they are complementary but separate proposals. I think that zero knowledge proving is very exciting. You know, we've publicly committed to building this out for Arbitrum technology. It's really a matter of time and finalizing the actual like final architecture. Like, it's really easy to say like all rollups are going to be ZK rollups, but actually you need some kind of fallback mechanism. Like, one prover is not really the safest thing. It's actually much less safe to rely on a single party doing proving than it is to have an optimistic window. Anyway, so there's time there, but we're really excited about the future. I think native rollups are a lot more about economic alignment between rollups and the layer 1. And there's a huge challenge, right? Like, Ethereum, you know, took advantage of a system where innovation and competition to build performance scaling solutions led more bandwidth to be created for the overall system, but created parties with varying interests around who would gain from the economic activity, who would benefit from that. And now we're in a paradigm where the system is more at odds than it was before. And so we're kind of seeing how that will play out. And I think it's interesting. So that's my perspective on the matter.
Got it. How about you, Binji?
There's always going to be various different solutions. I think that's the beauty of Ethereum, is like the level of composability and level of innovation happening across Ethereum, across L2 teams, across L1, like across the board, essentially. For me personally, the only thing that really matters is how many end users are being serviced and how much of Ethereum's trust is being used for something that helps an end user. And I think what's been exciting to see, like with these mature rollup systems, is they have users. Like, you're in service of like real customers that you have. And yes, there's developments that need to be done for you to reach certain standards, for you to reach certain places, but you must balance that with like also ensuring that your users have good user experience. Like, when you look at like competition in the blockchain space, it's largely now, because people are using these products, it's a front-end user-facing competition, right? Like, if you look at like, I mean, let's do fees, right? Like, who's generated the most fees in this ecosystem today? Front ends, right? What do front ends do? Front ends go and capture users, right? And users use these things for real life outcomes. DeFi works, and regardless what the market condition is, like people are lending and borrowing all the time. Like they have clear users. Rollups that service that also have clear users. Like we need to come from this like we need to be very open to this product led thinking, where you are building a system in service for an end user. You're not building a system to reach some arbitrary goal that you could work towards. And I think this is like the beauty of the Ethereum ecosystem is we're all working towards this thing on this open platform, such that innovations can compound on top of one another. But all those innovations don't matter if there's not users. So, in this sense, like the one thing that I think is really, really exciting is because of the rollup roadmap, there's so many different segments of users and so many different teams servicing their own segments of users. And they will, we trust them to have the optimal outcome in how to do so. We obviously believe the ultimate outcome to do so is like, fully decentralized rollups, like follow this roadmap. And all the top teams are like very much in accordance with that, right? So the semantic differences like native, based, like, et cetera, like those all matter in discussions that we have on the technical side. But I think the North Star is always like, how can Ethereum impact the most lives humanly possible? How can we build products and ecosystems and support levers that actually reach real people? Because like, this isn't something that we're just building to come to this conference and like talk about. Like there's real users, right? Like it's amazing how far we've come. And as long as we can optimize for that and ensure that we don't lose the values that got us here in the first place, it's very exciting. Very neutral EF answer.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think we're at a point where the teams have become so mature in like actually being able to communicate properly with their users and build something that people want. And yeah, there's plenty of approaches to do so.
Yeah, like experimenting basically, like solutions as well.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I can be quick about it. Indeed, with like the user experience, I guess definitely is indeed the most important thing when you're building the solutions. You're not just doing it for fun. And I think in a way that ZK and native rollups in a way are also definitely contributing to that. I think the biggest problem right now is probably liquidity, fragmentation, UX experience around bridging and finality. And ZK and native rollups are both helping mitigate these problems within rollups. If you are at all a trader, I don't know if there are any traders here, but if you've been using LiDAR, for example, that's a ZK using rollup, and the trading experience is fantastic there. And I think if ZK was not to be used there, you would have a whole different experience around depositing, withdrawing money, and actually executing orders on it as well. So yeah, in that way, agree on the UX part. I think it's the most important thing to be building towards. And I think ZK and all these new technologies that everyone is working on is significantly helping with that.
Of course, like, so the new architectures are essentially looking, from what we heard from our panelists, are solve for UX, whether it's composability, whether it's trust. It would be solving for more or better of the UX of the users. So a lot of the teams, including Arbitrum, other teams, are like working on solving that UX problem to onboard the next generation of the users and actually, like Binji put it, distribute the trust of Ethereum through the rollups to the users. I wanted to get more into composability, but since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to actually allocate the rest of the time to more of a lightning section. So how do you see the rollup landscape in 2030 on Ethereum? Any of you can go who want to go first.
What, a few years from now, 5 years or so, less than that? I think we're seeing a lot. I mean, this is just my perspective from working with, I think increasing over the last year, larger institutions that are starting to see the value of bringing their trading onto a 24/7 platform that offloads this security budget, not entirely, but onto, as you mentioned, a trust layer that they don't pay for directly. And so it allows them to basically capture and create more value for their users and for their business. I think this is a double-edged sword, but really, really interesting because in my view, we're going to see probably several more, I would say, flagship rollups. Obviously, we hope they're built using Arbitrum technology. That's why we work every day the way we do. But we're going to see a lot more ecosystems that have different properties than the ones we're used to that purely mirror what Ethereum built. I think there will be a lot more new sets of constraints that kind of formalize around specific use cases. There was a talk right before this that I wish I caught, around insurance. Huge market, ready to be disrupted. I mean, like, it's incredibly inefficient. We have literal violence happening as a result of how bad it is in the US. And that needs a different architecture than a generalized blockchain, right? It can have a much more performant architecture that only services that type of trading volume, but also needs a lot of parties to do the pricing of the risk and onboarding of the capital. Anyway, that could be an ecosystem, and I think we'll see a lot more of that kind of pop out as more players move into the space.
Of course. Anyone else? Like, Binji?
I mean, I can do a quick UX one. I think right now, like using the broader Ethereum ecosystem, the blockchain ecosystem is like you have a Chrome tab, and every time you go from one website to the other, you have to change your Wi-Fi router. Like, imagine doing that for the internet today. In a couple of years, hopefully it all just feels like one experience, and you can just type Control-T, go to new rollup instantly, and just like use it without having to do all this like crazy bridging and stuff. More practically, I think it's the same thing. Like, we had hardware, we had software. As more of our life comes online, we need trustware, and that maps for everything, right? Like, that maps for social media. How do you know who's human versus AI? How do you know like that your money is safe? All of these things is like facilitated largely by the Ethereum ecosystem and the rollups that are along with it. I'd love to see that world become just second nature. Like, it's as easy as going on the internet. It is the internet.
So new use cases, better UX. How about yourself? How do you see this?
Yeah, I think 2030. At least what I hope to see is even more composability across the rollup. So indeed, what you say with like the Wi-Fi router switching, it would feel great if you're on Arbitrum that you can access the liquidity from L1 or even from other L2s. I guess the only thing that I've been thinking about recently is, let's say with base rollups or native rollups, if they came to complete maturity, what would happen if you feel like on one L2 you can access all of the liquidity and all of the applications on other chains? What would that mean in terms of the amount of rollups? Because if you can just access one rollup with all of the liquidity on the entire Ethereum ecosystem, and it has enough TPS, then would you even need more than that? And I guess like there's definitely things about like branding and building moat around a certain product, whether it's insurance, app chains, or for example from a bank. But I think the generalized rollups, I'm wondering how that would play out by 2030, and would be curious as well, for example, how you would think about that working with this every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think one interesting concept, and like, please forgive me if I butcher this, is concurrent rollups. So like, you can imagine there's like ARB1, ARB2, ARB3. It all, for the user, it all feels like one Arbitrum, but it's like, it has enough instances of it, so it's still sufficiently decentralized, but they're all interoperable, so it feels like one big chain. Where even if there's separate instances of this chain, it's like a concurrent system. That's kind of how servers work. Like, it's kind of AWS model mimicking, right?
Sounds like a Cosmos model, but on Ethereum, like base rollups we're trying to do actually like better UX, like easy access, except Cosmos probably couldn't pull it off. But yeah, something like that to actually get better access.
I mean, there's gonna be multiple different approaches to it. I think like at the end of the day, it's who services the end user, whose problems are we fixing, and how do we ensure that people who put their trust on this thing don't lose it. And I think that's the ultimate thing with like security, decentralization, scale, balancing all of that. The work that we do in this industry impacts billions and soon to be trillions of dollars. And that's crazy to think about. And so a lot of these decisions and all these conversations, they have to happen with like a lot of thought. So, and the different approaches are great.
Yeah, I hope the billions and trillions excited everybody in the audience here. With that, Matt, Binji, Douwe, thank you so much for your insightful answers in this panel. And hope you're now more bullish than ever on rollups. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.